All right, welcome. Thanks, Benny. Thanks for joining the show. Really appreciate you being on here for the episode one. This is like super cool to do this with you. For those who are not familiar with you, you were one of the like first hires at Dapper Labs. You contributed to CryptoKitties and NBA Top Shot. You worked on numerous brands like Billionaires Boys, Billionaires Boys Club, and Stapleverse. You were co-author of 6551 Token Bound Accounts, co-founder of Future Primitive, where you guys got a number of projects going on there right now. Any other notable things I should add to this like already incredible list of achievements?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. It's been a long time coming and excited. Off the podcast, we've had hundreds of conversations of like very interesting tech to community building to social to NFTs. So I'm glad we finally have this chance to do it on the record on your podcast. So, and very lucky to be the first episode, and hopefully you'll have thousands of more when you be doing one per day, hopefully, right? So, yeah, it's been an incredible journey, about 8 years of being in crypto NFTs and still going. And yeah, throughout that journey, lots of projects we've worked on. Some have succeeded, some haven't, as you know. So yeah, I think the more notable one is Checkpoint, which is these connected photo booths, photo machines that we have got going in several locations in New York and expanding to LA actually next month. So there's a lot of awesome things to talk about there. And then Perma, which is the social network that we've been designing from the ground up. And yeah, that is, we finally launched the beta version in the App Store, I think 2 weeks ago in New York. And so it's been, yeah, that's kind of like the top of mind focus these days.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. All right, so there's like a bunch of things to kind of talk about between from where we are now, but like I want to go back to kind of like in the before times. So like before crypto and Web3 and all of this stuff, you're like, what were you up to? What was your focus and attention on back then? Like what was going on for Benny?
Before crypto, I had spent about 2 to 3 years just in working at startups. So I was originally from Calgary and went to school there. I never graduated. I actually dropped out of my third year, and I was studying psychology and business. But I had this incredible opportunity where this fast growing startup that was founded by two of my friends, they needed an additional help, like an extra pair of hands. And in the beginning, it was casual, like on and off ad hoc work, but eventually it grew to like a whole entire role that was managing the operations. And I told myself, I was like, hey, I'm learning a lot on the job. I'm solving a lot of crazy problems I never imagined I would be. And I was like, I'll take a semester off to just like treat it as an internship. And I never got back. I never returned. I just kept rolling from one startup to another, and eventually landed me here in Vancouver. I've been here for around 9 years. So that's kind of been my journey, and a lot of it had to do with the first company was they built an advertising network
Hmm.
for high schools. They were placing ads, physical ads, on in the hallways and all of that of high schools. And these ads would not, it would be for like university colleges. So it's like all good stuff for the students. So I was actually installing those ads using the hate gun and squeegee, all of that. I started installing for like three schools, three high schools in Calgary, and then five, and then 10, and then 20. And I would have to drive and do all of that. And funny enough, like what we're doing with Checkpoint now is expanding to cities, and I'm hiring like people who would do a similar job of like going and pitching and placing the checkpoints. There's a lot of logistics and operations required. Um, and then I eventually went to operations where I was managing all of Canada. So it was like over 300 high schools, 400 high schools across the whole country.
Dang. Wow.
And I was hiring students to do the installing. So I no longer did that. So that was really my early beginnings before crypto. It was just getting a taste of logistics and operations.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Because now, as we get into things that you're up to right now, like a lot of the real world stuff that you've touched, like tangible things that kind of that maybe some of where this was all applied from and whatnot. So super cool there to learn a bit more about that. So with crypto, I always feel like or crypto Web3, all this blockchain technology, there's kind of like an aha moment for somebody. And I'm just kind of curious for you, like where was that or what happened? What was it like the light went off? Was there a moment like that or some of the things that you saw or yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, I had a really strong skepticism for crypto. Many people know or may not know, but I started when I moved to Vancouver. I joined Axiom Zen, which was a venture studio, and I joined as a social media intern for like a month, and then I moved up to like growth marketing, and then product management, and then so on and so forth. But you know, at this venture studio, there were many different buckets from AI to enterprise SaaS to productivity SaaS, mobile games. So I got to dabble in a bunch of these buckets and understand the tech and even like contribute to a lot of these products. And when crypto kind of came along in my purview, there was already like several people involved, like Mac, Flavel, and a bunch of other folks. And I think when they mentioned it to me, I just thought like it was this internet money that somehow has value. And like I think there was a after work session where a bunch of us set up Coinbase accounts. So I remember there was like a small splinter of time where Coinbase was in Canada. So I was able to create a Coinbase account. I actually loaded in some money. I bought some ETH. ETH was like really cheap at that time, or at least affordable, right, compared to now. And I bought it, and I remembered I was just like, why did I just waste all this money? Like, what am I doing here? Like, this thing doesn't make any sense. So I started there, and the aha moment for me was when I went to the ETH Waterloo hackathon. So that ETH Waterloo hackathon is when, for people who know, like that's where we launched CryptoKitties. And I was part of like orchestrating the guerrilla marketing launch campaign at that hackathon. And I didn't know what to expect. I'd been to hackathons before when I was in university, and they have a very typical process of how that whole thing works. But flying to Waterloo, and then I was surprised by how many people were there, and Vitalik was there. I heard him talk, and I had like Dan Finley from MetaMask, and Linda Shi was at Coinbase, and Jesse Pollock was there. So it was like the whole gamut of people building and the enthusiasm. That's when I walk around those halls. I was like, wait a minute, this there's no way that everyone here doesn't believe in this. If they did, they wouldn't be here, right? So they obviously like there's something here. So that was when it clicked in my head. I was like, wow, there's an ecosystem here.
Amazing, amazing, and yeah. Now, since that ecosystem has blossomed and flourished since then, taking you through a whole bunch of different things, and I think going from all the way back then to till basically now here at Future Primitive. Yeah, curious like what you guys are cooking on, what you're working on and cooking. You've been talked about like the Perma app a little bit and Checkpoint. Please feel free to just let people know what that is and what's up.
Yeah, I started Future Primitive 4 years ago. Time has flew by. We started off as a venture studio. I kind of reminiscent the early times of when we were just like had a clear mind and the sky was the limit, and it was like we have technology, how do we build things that are fascinating? So that's when I co-founded Future Primitive along with Jaden and Steve. And so we began our journey working with Jeff Staple with the Stapleverse project, and then with the BB3 project. And it was just to get an idea of like the lay of the land and go back to my root of like doing crazy things with NFTs. I kind of had the opportunity to see like how it blossomed from 2017, and then the several booms and bust periods, and the remixing of the 10K PFP with token gating, and it's like always like a remix of one step ahead. So I thought to myself, well, we have to be more than token gating. It had to be more than Discord chat. We should like do like physical things like putting NFC tags in clothing. We should do scavenger hunts that get people to walk from one location to the next. And as I said, like everything kind of comes full circle because what we did with Stapleverse of a scavenger hunt now is like implemented in the form of checkpoint, right? Where you're walking to one machine to a next in physical location. And when we did the scavenger hunt, it was also in New York, and checkpoints are all in New York. So there's a lot of like connections that tie in from what we did 4 years ago to now. But yeah, our very focus at Future Primitive is just looking at primitives and then figuring out ways to like humanize them, make them accessible and easy to use. We're never. That's why we're like really bad at DeFi. I think we've attempted several times in the past, but we're just like DeFi is so meta, and there's like so many complicated like financial things that need to be considered, and also security, that we're just not really like, it's not that we're not secure or anything, but we do well, we do way better in like consumer making things more playable. So that's kind of our journey.
Yeah, very cool. And am I seeing you're at the office right now?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like such a rad place. That's yeah, it has like an art, like it's creative and art vibe going on there versus like very sterile and just
Yep.
cubicle. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think I see.
We like to have fun. Like there's some I don't know if you I could move this. We have like the DJ decks here, and then we got the checkpoint that we'll go show you. We can show you how it works later, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super rad. That's super rad that you can be in that kind of environment and do all that stuff too. So, with perma, let's get into that a little bit here.
Hmm.
So yeah, actually just got the new version of it or whatever. I'd used the old ones in the past, and it was like super cool to be able to just it felt like it was kind of like old day Instagram with like hips thematic because I could add some like
Hmm.
filters and stuff. But what's for people who aren't really super familiar with it, what's kind of going on with perma? And what's the big thing there?
Yeah. So rewinding some time, Perma began sometime in 2018 when I was at Dapper. The I had this idea at that time of like digital film rolls as NFTs that you would buy, and then you can load it up in an app and take 24 photos or 36, and those photos would be photo NFTs. So it'd be photo film roll, photo NFTs. I still have the original like Google Jamboard that I wrote this idea on, and then life got really busy. I got carried away with a small basketball thing that took up a lot of time, and then yeah, like I just couldn't escape my mind. Sometimes I think like as people listen to this podcast, there's like probably ideas that stew right for many years. You had it like several years ago, and it kind of reemerges, and you're like, wait a minute, like maybe there's something here. So around 2024, that's when we finally got back to like, hey, let's actually build this thing. So Perma V1, that's the version that we refer to as kind of like the hipstamatic, and like there is a film roll that you buy with Apple Pay, and then you can take photos, and the photos were NFTs as well. And that was a really incredible experience for the team to shift towards like photography, because we haven't really built anything in the photography side, right? Previous to that, we were working on token bound accounts in ERC 6551. So it was a good test ground, and there were a lot of folks that loved that slow photography experience, right? Where it was less about feeds and less about influencers, and it was like, hey, is this photo worth my money to take? And that's the same like thinking process of people actually shooting on film, right? Because the scarcity is already baked in. Along that journey, we had many different crazy ideas, from like bonding curves and like photo markets, and like very similar to Zora coin markets, and like connecting it to an LP pool, all of this crazy stuff. But we just ended up scaling it down to like, hey, it's about taking photos and memorializing them. So that was version one. We launched it at several music festival, FWV Fest. There was also a festival in Korea. And I think it did okay. Honestly, like I think that's the hard part of building many products is that like you feel so connected to it. You feel like a deep passion for it. But at the end of the day, it's like product market fit. So like, what does the market want and how big is the market? So I think the challenge with Perma V1 is like the market was not as big as we thought it would be, right? Like, sure, there is like this resurgence of like film cameras and film development. But like, I don't think like if you add up all the people in the world, like how many is there, right? Like 500,000 maybe,
Yeah, I don't know.
give
Actually, I saw
maybe
somebody.
less.
Yeah, I saw somebody yesterday or a couple days ago. There were two people had Hasselblads out and they were taking pictures on the
Wow,
seawall. I was like, oh, sick, super cool to see
incredible.
that.
Yeah, I mean that's a rare medium, like in Hasselblad's and medium format, incredible medium. So we went from that, where then we went back to the drawing board a little bit, and we kind of rethought about like, well, if the unit economics of selling film rolls for $5 in Apple Pay using Apple, and then we have to give Apple the cut, like how many do we need to sell, right? Like we have to sell so many of them to even like break even. And a lot of times, I think when you're building a product, you get caught up with like the idea. You're not thinking about unit economics. You're not thinking about like scalability, sustainability. So that led us to rethink the structure of Perma and like what is at its core, what is it all about? Well, it's still about memorializing moments. It's still about NFTs. The main difference now is less about you could only take 24 photos. It's more about like when you take a photo, can that photo connect you to other people around the world who have a similar perspective? So that's one. And then the number two is like the idea of distributing photos is really interesting because the point of IG and Snap, it's all about like distribution, right? Like how many followers do you have? How many people can see your photo, and then does this photo become viral, right? I think what was really fascinating to us is like if we imagine social networks as digital countries, and I had a whole write up about it, right? Like if IG is a digital country, how does the economy work? How do they make money? How do they funnel money back to its citizens, right? What are the rules that they set in place? Is it fair rules, right? Or maybe they're not fair, right? And so from that context, we started to have a bigger vision of like, well, if we want to build a better digital country, we need to start at like the economic layer, and the economic layer is based on like the roles of what people want to do in the country. And for us, it's like curation, human curation of photos, and connecting one another. So Perma V2 takes on that bigger mission, more and a natural expansion of like this idea of like slow photography.
Yeah. And like all of the photos that are taken within Perma, they're all live, right? Or yes, I can't like upload a, manicured photo or AI generation or anything. Like it's all snapped from live from your phone.
Yeah, so no uploads, no generative content. You take it live, like right here, right now. And I think we're learning a bunch of things from this too, right? Where like us as humans, beyond work, like we're kind of like in the vicinity of like 3 blocks, 4 blocks of our homes, right? So it's like, can you capture something really interesting that's around you in daily life? Um, I think we're learning quickly that like there are some interesting moments, but sometimes they're hard to come by, right? While you have other platforms that allow you to upload or generate content, you see a lot of crazy stuff, right? Like someone's on an airplane, someone's private jet, someone's like traveling in a car, and then you have like people living it up, right? But it goes to show it's just like, is that real? Like both from like a generative sense, or like even if you did get on a plane, like are you on the plane right now, or was that 3 months ago and then you're uploading it now, right? So it brings that into question of like what is real, authentic, genuine moments that represent your actual life, than like a fictitious one that you're building up. right?
Yeah,
And we
that's
can
super
get down
cool.
the whole rabbit hole of like generative content, which is kind of, it's just a whole different crazy thing, right? That has come into
Yeah,
the purview.
it's been incredible to like see what people are just generating, and that's just like a pure marketing strategy at this point because it's like it's just faster and cheaper and easier to do all of that. But I really like that you're capturing this essence of like living in the moment, right? And this goes back all the way to so many philosophical things and whatnot of like even the simple line of like stop and smell the roses, and just taking that
Right.
time to actually capture and appreciate what's happening in real life, in particular when we're in this industry where we are constantly plugged to our phones and everything is just like constant stimulation for like everything that's happening all the time. So if we can take this to say, hey, this is like what's happening right now in front of me, and this is really cool, and I want to just be able to capture that moment, and that's it. Instead of, okay, I'm gonna curate this and put it into Photoshop and edit it a
Right.
whole bunch and change the lighting and add this or that or add, run it through AI and like, yeah, no, we lose all of
And
that. So
that's why we're here, right? We're actually here talking. I mean, I'm sure there are other generative tools to generate a podcast of two talking people, but
that's true.
like that defeats the purpose, right?
Totally does. Yeah, we lose that human element big time, big time. So yeah, okay. So anything further on perma to kind of chat about? I guess like if people are looking for it, they can just find it on the App Store right now, or App and
Yeah.
Google Play.
It's just iOS right now, so just search perma, and yeah, it's beta, so there are bugs to be expected, and we're still adding new features and elements to it. But yeah, I'd be really interested to hear people's feedback. And perma's the backbone for checkpoints that you just saw briefly. It's the underlying protocol social network of which like people enter into either from the app or from the checkpoint itself. So that's kind of been really interesting to go back, as you said, to like the physical piece. Nowadays, like building an app is so easy, right? Like you can vibe code an app using the hundreds of different tools out there. And so it begs the question of just like, if anyone can build apps, like there's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of competition on like advertising or whatever to drive downloads. So we've taken a very, very different perspective on that, where like going to physical locations for a network that's about genuineness and authenticness is the right like combination of the two.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So the checkpoint, we see that behind you here. You just started talking about it here. Let's maybe dive into that further. We've been thankful
Right.
that I've been able to actually be at one of the checkpoints and try it out. But yeah, please let us know what's going on there.
Yeah, so this is a checkpoint. It's a connected photo machine. Sometimes people call it a photo booth because it's easier to understand. But yeah, it's super portable. You plug it in and that's it. It's like looks like an old Mac, like one of the early Macs. And all you do is just you push this button, and then it just takes your photo
Amazing.
on receipt paper, on thermal paper,
Yeah, yeah.
and then there is a QR code you can scan to collect it, and then you can create a profile, and then that will link to Perma as well. So that's it. Like that's the machine that it started off actually in New York. There was like a small team that built 20 of these machines. And when we were living in New York last year, we were like, wow, this thing looks so captivating and well designed. And we decided to bring them on board the Future Primitive. So they've joined us. And they've helped expand the network by deploying those 20 machines. So they are live now in cafes, art galleries, clothing stores, thrift stores, bookstores, and even like clubs, eclectic like underground warehouse clubs. So yeah, there's 20 of them. And then we actually here in Vancouver, a month and a half ago, we built 100 more of these machines. So we had a whole assembly line of like, I think like 12 people, and we were soldering and assembling and connecting wires. So in the other room across the hall, we have the 100 machines there that are still going through quality check. And then very soon, actually this week, we're going to ship a bunch of them to LA. And that will be the beginning of LASF, California checkpoints. So, yeah, expanding from East Coast to West Coast. And obviously for Vancouver, we'll have several machines set up soon. We'll be happy to have one in community areas as well. But yeah, that's kind of like how checkpoints work. So the interesting thing of these machines is that in regards to Web3, like we can make them mint photos. That's very easy. We've done so. We've teamed up with Solana at their Accelerate conference, and they made every photo mint. We've teamed up with Refraction. They minted photos to base. So it's very easy to do that. The challenge here is just like disclosures and like and more of like privacy, right? Where like a unexpected person at a normal cafe, like just taking a photo, in my opinion, the photos shouldn't be minted without their permission because it'd be like permanent, and they don't know that, right? So the way we do that is just like the photo is not on chain, but when you scan the QR and you create a profile, you have the option to make it permanent and on chain. So I think that's a better way because like we're not forcing you to do it. The other thing that's really interesting about the checkpoint is when you create an account via the QR code, we actually assign you a wallet. So we're using Privy. So every user who signs up, they get a wallet, and that means we can actually distribute tokens to the wallet. So tokens can be all sorts of things. It could be loyalty, it could be points, it could be some sort of like fun meme coin, but they have wallets to receive it. So that's a really cool thing.
Right. So this is kind of interesting for people who are not like Web3 native. And like this might be
Right.
like, this checkpoint might actually be their first touch point with Web3 or crypto or any of this sort of stuff. And so they would be able to just like create that. So if they were to scan that QR code, they just create an account with Privy. It's all attached to their email, I presume, or I see you guys had
Phone
some
number.
phone number stuff going. Phone number.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that in a second here about phone numbers, but so they'll be able to, just have this account that's like created from their phone number, and they're just like interacting with it just like a normal social account that they would normally would deal with.
Right.
And that can be their access point. And because they have these, then that wallet could then have, like you say, could be interacting with tokens, could be getting, free things, could be points of loyalty rewards, everything. Oh, I came to, checked in a few times here. So you get, whatever. That's
Right.
like, that could be super, super cool. Yeah. Oh, I like that. So with the phone number stuff, a lot of Web3 people are just like, oh, I don't want phone number, I don't want email and whatnot. Obviously, seeing like this, how Privy has kind of done this, and a number of other, I guess onboarding. I don't know how we want to call these. I guess just like onboarding, wallet type systems.
Yeah. Provision wallets. Yeah.
Yeah. So with the phone number side of it, how do you just feel that like that is the best way to meet people where they are versus email, or, tell us what your kind of thoughts are behind that.
So several things. Checkpoints were explicitly when we decided to bring them on board to FP. We decided that we would be going for a very a different demographic than crypto Twitter, crypto community. Like I've been in like you've been in this space for a very long time, and I find myself kind of like always flipping between either sides. Like on one end, like I built products that are like crypto native, Web3 native, and like, hey, if you don't understand MetaMask, like you shouldn't be here. And then I flip on the other end of like, all right, like we need to hide all these things and make it super consumer. And the trick is finding that balance because you don't want to hide it so much that then it's like people don't understand what's actually happening. And when they do, they might feel a certain way. And then you also don't want to be like, hey, if you don't know how to do a wallet, like you don't deserve to be here, right? So I think Checkpoint, we found that balance, but we were explicitly targeting real people like Gen Zs, we call multi-hyphenates, People that you and I might know, like they do pottery classes on Thursdays, and then they go bouldering on Fridays, and then they also like DJ on the side on the weekends. Like people that have really strong hobbies that kind of make up their identity and personality. So we call those multi hyphenates, and we're going for that demographic. And for those folks, they are not on crypto. Like those people are that demographic is either like they're like turning away from social media, or they're hyper into social media. But one thing we know is that they're not really like creating wallets and or caring about it, right? There's a small like percentage of them that's into like the meme coin stuff, but
Yeah.
that's not really huge.
Why do you think that
So
is?
around
Or why do you think that we've lost so much of like that I guess generation or that demographic is just like not interested? What do you have any takes onto why that is or what? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it has to be the political size of the crypto space, right? Like I find it very difficult because of where I began. I never saw it as like a political thing, and I still am trying to understand it more. Every day I'm learning more about it. So I'm not an expert, but I feel like because of like politics being involved and launching coins and like certain folks that have a lot of sway and power, I guess, in certain arenas, like it's kind of created a branding image of like this technology is more for empowering those who are in that side, whatever side that you think it is. So I think that's a challenge because the demographic we're targeting, they are very political. They're very active. They are activists, right? They really care about things that align with their values, and so I think sometimes crypto falls into the opposite of what they think they believe in, right? So I think that's the challenge. And going back to the phone numbers, is like that demographic, they use phone number a lot more, right? Like if you look at any Web2 social app, they're always signing up with phone number and doing the two-factor authentication on it rather than email, right? They're not like running around like with an email address as probably you and I do. So that's part of the reason. And then the really interesting thing around provisioned wallets is we all know that it's easy to create that wallet, but then it's really hard when you have a lot of assets accrued for you to eventually move it out, right? I think we've seen this with many provisioned wallet services. Some that I won't name, but they've done like big collabs of big brands and opened hundreds and thousands of wallets, millions of wallets, and they even airdropped like all sorts of like tokens in the thousands into these wallets. And then there comes a time where either the user or the brands or one of these stakeholders are like, hey, let's migrate, like, or let's move it somewhere else. And then everyone's scratching their head because they're like, damn, this is either going to be near impossible because it's going to be too costly or too slow to move all these things. So the good thing is the way we've designed the identity or profile of the user, we're actually using token bound accounts. So underneath all of it, when you create a preview wallet, you can think of that as like the top level wallet. We actually mint an NFT. That's what we call a profile NFT that sits inside of that top level wallet. And inside of the profile NFT, it obviously has a token bound account address. So all your photos are actually minted inside of the TBA of the NFT. So we're solving that problem that eventually one day maybe you've taken 100,000 photos and you're like, yo, I want to leave. One transfer of an NFT and you can move it from Privy to MetaMask or to any wallet, Coinbase wallet, and you've essentially taken all your photos with you. So yeah, that's kind of our thinking of like why TBAs still matter, but mostly like in this future path of migration.
Yeah, very cool. And I'm glad you kind of shedded some more light on like the 6551 side of things, just because when you first kind of introduced that to us, I was like, that is a game changer because it's at that time I was like very, and still am a very big advocate for POAPs, right? I like this proof of attendance. We're trying to say, hey, you were here real time, or I met you at a certain point, or I was at this, basically at this spot where I was able to mint this POAP. And now with all of these, I was like trying to do a wallet migration, and I was like, geez, I have to click through. There's like a really janky place to go click all of them and then migrate and send, and I get transactions and this. It was just a complete headache, and you could only send, I don't know, maybe I was doing something wrong, but I think I could only send like 20 or 30 at a time or something like this
Wow.
before, like maybe it was the website was crashing or something. Doesn't matter. With this concept of saying, hey, this is my identity or this is my profile, and then we just start packing things inside of it, and then effectively you could keep packing things inside of other things. So it's kind of like a file folder system,
Right.
is the way I was kind of thinking, or I think you've
Yeah.
explained it like that, and it really like clicked for me. And so some people would say, oh, well, you just have different wallets for different things, but then again, those wallets, they still aren't connected everywhere the way that they need to
Right.
be, and that still creates a bit of fragmentation. So the fact that we can just like bake all this together into this like streamlined, tree basically, where it's just like, all right, we just pick the tree up and the whole thing comes over and
Yeah.
down we go. Like
Yeah.
amazing. So I
Yeah.
really like that design. I think that's super cool.
And I think it creates the best UX, right? Like you get fast entry from provisioned wallets from like a fairly like used to UX of putting a phone number and getting a code back. And then you can just use it as normal. It's your wallet. And then when you want to leave, you got fast exit, right? So I think there hasn't really been anything that's had that ability of like flexibility. Now, there are smart contract wallets that have some sort of that portability attributes as well. But the thing that it doesn't have is that you can't list it for sale. So I don't know. Some people might want to list their profile NFT with 100,000 photos for sale as their entire like life's collections of moments. Eventually, like Justin Bieber selling his whole record collection. Maybe one day you want to do that. You can do that because it's an NFT, right? While a smart wallet, you can't do that. You could move it, but you can't sell it.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point as well. And I think that could, people will start to look at that kind of model, and maybe that does end up getting kind of financialized or whatever, but there could be some really interesting things to do that with you think about collectibles and where that's all headed, especially like, I don't know, kind of like curious how you think about like real world assets as well, and like how if we're going to have collectibles for things, and like, hey, maybe I'm collecting these attributes or these tokens, and they're all connected into my wallet, and then being able to have like real world asset stuff that we can go and claim or redeem or whatever needs to happen. You could just sell this whole bundle as this like, here is everything together, and selling sell that as a package. So I can see use cases for that. So how did 6551 like come to life though? Like we're getting into it here a whole bunch, but maybe we should talk like how that came to life, what inspired that.
I think the first question many people might have is like, why did we pick that number, right? 6551, right? Or 721. Is someone in the background just randomly picking numbers? It's just the proposal number, right? It's the 6,551 proposal. And how it came in our purview is we were working on a very specific project with the Stapleverse called Sapiens. And again, like trying to push the envelope of like what ifs. Like we were like, well, PFPs are cool, but you can't change the clothing of the PFP. You're stuck with that hat or I don't know, the way accessories or whatever forever. And some people like that because it's like cemented, decentralized assets. But I think like people, if you look at games, like people change weapons and equipment all the time. So we were like, let's do that on chain. And we looked at all these different options of like, how do you do equipables or wearables? And we, there were some interesting proposals, and some people executed ideas like Artifact and like Doodles, but we kind of had the most simplest solution, which is what if every NFT had their own wallet, and then the wallet can hold the equipables and the wearables, And then there could be an interface where you can determine, hey, equip this shirt or this jacket, and then it will change the aesthetic of your PFP. So by nature of trying to push the envelope of a PFP project, we landed on this solution at a hackathon, and then we're like, hey, this, because the wallet address works across all of EVM. Now there's a more interesting thing where like your PFP can live on ETH mainnet, but your clothing equipables can be on Base, Optimism, Arbitrum, and it doesn't really matter, and they're all associated to the same address. So there's a lot of cross-chain awesomeness that we've uncovered. But I think the challenge there, I think you and I get really excited about NFT innovation. I get really like nerdy about it, but sometimes like I think our excitement precedes like what the actual market's looking for. So that with TBAs, that I think where we landed was like, well, there were people building on it. There's still a community of people who really believe in it, and I think some of these things take time, right? Like 721 took some time, and I really do believe that should be a baseline property that everyone adheres to and leverages in a decentralized context. It just so happens for us, like the way we're going to do it is through a profile NFT using TBAs, and if we have 1 million users, we've kind of help that goal along.
Yeah, very cool. Because you touched on it a second ago here about like with the gaming side of things, and when you've got, I look at the amount of sales for something like CS:GO skins, right? And it's like you have all of these skins, you're paying ungodly amounts of money for all these things, and it's literally just sitting in a centralized server where your account can get wiped out. And I mean, this all goes all the way back to like the Vitalik Cry story of why he was, wanted to create Ethereum for this. But the fact that you could like literally attach this, utilizing something like 6551 here with your TBAs is, you could put all of those skins that you had attached to your character. You've paid all this money for them, and maybe you're done with the game, or you want to move on, or you're like, hey, wait a second, I've evolved to, I need to move on to a different character or whatever. But you've built and you put all this time and effort and energy into this account. And now you're like, you literally would have to sell your account and then create an escrow service for this and whatever else. I think it gets pretty complicated for how you would do that in Web 2. But this could literally, like you just said, hey, I'm just going to, my profile as NFT that has all of these things baked into it, all my, equipables, my skins, my whatever, all these attributes that are there. And that just gets moved over and off you go. And to me, that just seems like almost too good to be true and too easy. And probably isn't too profitable for gaming companies, so I don't think they really want that.
They don't want you to leave; they want you to stay, and like, and it's not, I think you and I believe that NFTs are, in my mind, like the internet native objects, right? That like as the real world gets more like complex and maybe more turmoil, more situations in the real world, and rent is expensive depending on where you live, like physical space becomes scarce, right? And ownership of digital objects is going to rise in that instance because humans will never stop telling stories, humans will never stop creating context, and humans will never stop connecting with other humans. We're social beings. So like with that in mind, like if our constraints are through the box that we physically sit in, then it will naturally output into like the digital one. And so I do think like in the long scale of things, 10, 30, 50 years when we have grandkids or whatever, like they would be like looking at our digital digital objects of storytelling, right? Not necessarily value, like they could be valuable from like, oh, this is grandpa's like digital object, not in the sense that it could be worth millions, but yeah, so I think that's super key,
Yeah, and being able to capture all that and maybe have it stored in more of a a persistent state as well. Because you think about, you start to, you're just mentioning like, oh, grandpa's this or that or whatever. You think about some of the photos that you're like, oh, I need to preserve this, or I need to like, get it back to, or get it retouched up so that I can actually see it, or it's not all cracked and whatnot. it'd be super cool to just, and I think we're gonna have that already with like so much digital photos that are happening
Mm.
now as compared to we literally just had film back then, and you might be lucky to have a black and white, and hopefully the camera wasn't too blurry or whatnot, but in that's like all you really have of those memories and those moments. And so there's probably some fine line between like the complete just like digital overload that we have now versus like those very scarce fit photos, but be able to create this capsule that can be passed along and kind of like
Hmm.
immortalized, and using it through blockchains or however we want to store all this stuff. Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool way to preserve storytelling at the same
Right.
time. We've been
Yeah.
we've been carving things onto the side of cave walls
Yeah.
since the beginning of time. So hey, now
Right.
we're just like carving it into the blockchains as well.
Yeah.
So
And it probably warrants like a longer episode because this naturally goes into like the underpinnings of designing a social network that's like from the bottom up decentralized, and like where like total ownership is like spread across the nodes and all of that. Like, and we've conceptualized a lot of and even built prototypes for like decentralized storage, decentralized indexing, and all of this stuff that's underneath the simplicity of perma, that you don't really see. We've dove into like social, like we dove into Blue Sky, Mastodon, like all of these other ones, and like looked at the design decisions that they've made. So yeah, that could be maybe for another time, but like it's really fascinating to see like how do we actually get to that state where photos are indeed permanent and not reliant on a pinning service or an IPFS node to be paid on a monthly bill service, which practically then centralizes it, right?
yeah, you're right. You're right. No, cool, cool. And yeah, so with TBA stuff, like that was, I think you guys rolled that out at like in New York, in
Mm-hmm.
NFT NYC. Was that 23?
Yeah, 23 was the TBA year. That's where we rolled it out, and there was a community of builders, games. It had agents. I still remember we had NPC day. We were gathering up all the AI folks, and we're like, hey, what if like an NFT was an agent and they can do transactions for you, and wouldn't that be cool? And I think people looked at us like we were crazy. Like they were like, "What are you talking about?" Obviously, the agents existed before we started pushing the NPC thing, but what did not exist was this connection of agents that were on chain tweeting, or agents that can initiate transactions and have their own wallets and can mint meme coins and stuff. That was like the idea space that we were constructing of like, hey, if you put these things together, you can get there. And long and behold, I think that Clanker, all these other what was it, the Ace AI 16Z, like Eliza, like all these things kind of came afterwards, right?
Yeah, yeah, wild, wild how that's all formed. But yeah, just back to the New York side of things as well. It was yeah, so 23, and
Mm-hmm.
as I messaged you ahead of time saying, hey, I'm going to be in New York, this and that. And one thing I really wanted to touch on while we're here with this conversation is you said, hey, while you're there, make sure you go to the Kittrick Hotel and you go to Sleep No More. And my God, Benny, that was one of a spectacular event. Sadly, I think it shut down
Yeah,
last year. It wound down, but wow, to have like now as we've talked about like these in real life like moments, this like real in your face, like you're living in the now, live
right.
experiential moment. Like this was the most incredible live action role playing or performance play. Like I don't even know what you
Right.
call it. It was just
Yeah.
incredible to be able to and choose your own adventure. And you can walk
Yeah.
around this massive hotel that, or well, it's not even really a hotel. It's more of like a movie theater or movie set that you can
Yeah.
constantly walk through, and you just suddenly come across like a wild scene happening.
Yes.
Yeah, so was very thankful that you shared that.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I actually have. I mean, are you planning a trip to New York anytime soon?
Well, not anything planned, but go on. Maybe I'll change my mind.
So I just got back. like a week ago from New York, and so the production crew of Sleep No More, not Punch Drunk, there was like another party. They created something new called Life and Trust that unfortunately did shut down. So I'm not telling you about that one, but like that one was running for about 6 months last year, and it was like in Wall Street, an old bank, multiple floors, same idea, actors, new storylines. It was super sick. I went twice, and I was like, wow, this is the new thing. So you unfortunately they shut down. I think there was like some crazy. I don't know if it's like verified, but they couldn't pay rent or something, and they shut down. But I do have something for you. So the Punch Drunk, the original creators of Sleep No More, they have a temporary new experience called Viola's Room, and it's in New York. It's only there till October, and I went to it. It's crazy. Like you gotta go. I think you should just get tickets and go, and your mind's gonna be blown. So it's not. Don't expect Sleep No More of multiple floors and there's actually no actors, but it's highly experiential and very innovative in the way they did it. So highly recommend you checking that out. They on top of that, there is also another experience called the Speakeasy Magic that is from the I think they're affiliated to the Punch Drunk crew. And that's like really again cool experience to witness. And then the things I haven't seen, I apparently Sleep No More is in Korea now, so they actually brought it back alive. And I don't know what it like if it looks the same or what's going on, but it's apparently in Seoul right now. So if you're going to
Okay.
Korea,
Hey, I guess. Wow. Well, that's I'm glad to hear that because I was like so chapped to hear that like oh this wound down, and I'm just glad that it's I haven't really followed up with anything further, so I'm glad that we
hmm
touched on that because yeah, these are incredible experiences. Yeah, and so anybody that's listening to this, please be sure to
yes,
follow up on that and check it out because super. Yeah, it's super amazing. And one other
yeah,
thing with so many crypto people that end up in Denver, in February, like I think
yeah, well,
last year we really saw it with Meow Wolf, like a lot of like events were actually hosted there. But what a
mhm,
cool place too, where you can just
yeah,
like fun and play, and I mean a totally different experience there. But just to be able to like put yourself in this like kind of fun and play and enjoyment of like,
right.
a different style of world is like it's so cool.
I think that's what it's all about, like I said, we just want to meet people and express ourselves and have fun. Like, I don't think anyone would deny that. And sure, I think the financialization and like, oh, my bags grew, it does create a sense of like happiness for certain people and life changing, right? But like, crypto has to be more than just money making money games. If it could connect people and create profoundness, like and stories, like I think that's what sticks with you, right? That's what leaves a mark on your entire life, right?
Beautiful. I think that's a fantastic line to end things on there, Benny. That is well said and yeah, beautifully punctuated. So,
Right.
yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts or anything else you want to share with people before we wrap up?
No, I think thank you, Tangle, for having me on here. For folks that want to come and try out Perma, it's in the App Store. And then, yeah, we also have really cool. We've been designing like team outfits for years, and now finally we released a capsule collection called Software. So if people are interested, it's fp.inc, our site, and then you can see some really cool hats and shirts. And so, yeah, definitely check that out.
Cool. And any other website socials that people should be finding you on or checking out?
Yeah, my handle's at Benny Yang, BNNYGIANG. But yeah, and then Future Primitives, you can search that. It pretty much
Yeah,
pops
and
up
find it
everywhere.
there.
Cool.
Wicked, wicked.
Awesome. Thank
Alrighty.
you,
Well,
Tangle.
really appreciate it, Benny. See you soon, and
See you soon.
yeah, hopefully see you tomorrow. A 10-year anniversary for Ethereum,
Yes,
so we'll see you
big
at
one.
that birthday party. So big day,
We'll
big
be there.
things. So really appreciate it, man. Okay.
Peace.